Hi and a warm welcome back to this next lesson, lesson number 4, all about the nature of time. And this is where we're going to go deep into a brand new version of reality, if you like. So we're going to explore how time doesn't exist outside of you. So a lot of you may have heard of that everything happens in the same moment, that time doesn't exist. Well, we're going to take that whole stage further. Remember that we're dealing with a reality that's created by you. So if you were dreaming, how do you get time in a dream? Well, you don't. Time doesn't exist in a dream. And that's the key to this understanding, this state of consciousness. Therefore, things like karma, cause and effect, past, present and future don't exist in the same way that we have been brought up to think about them. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to have a look at ideas around time, things like reincarnation. Now, if time doesn't exist, reincarnation doesn't exist, all events happening at the same time. So what does that mean for your consciousness, your soul? How does that work? And the next few lessons, they're going to be exploring that kind of theme. Here we're going to have a look at the nature of reincarnation, the nature of time itself, and how you are free from time. You don't actually exist within time at all. Shockingly, you actually exist outside of time, but you actually use time as a medium through which to create events. And so we're going to go deep into this one. I really hope you enjoy it. It's a bit mind-blowing, of course it is, but it will help free you up from ideas around, I'm held by this from the past, or I'm worried about the future. Going to help you really release yourself from all of those, give you a brand new version of reality that involves a very multi-dimensional nature and aspect of you, your soul, your consciousness, and the reality that we call Earth. That's it. I hope you enjoy the lesson. Okay, warm welcome back. Let's have a look at the nature of time and let's just get into this one. So this lesson is called Reincarnation and the Simultaneous Nature of Time. So let's get into reincarnation. So what's the traditional view of reincarnation and the kind of attributes that we see with it? Well, the traditional view is that you have a soul, so you're human. There are other views, of course, where you're not human, where you're an animal. Typically Buddhist, where you're animal and you develop maybe into a human, that type of thing, other belief systems. But essentially is that you are soul, you come, the language, a lot of it is that you come into physical life, into a body, you go through physical life, you die, you go up to heaven or wherever it is, you come back down again, and there's this process going on. So where do you think that fits in terms of what we're thinking about now, what we're exploring now? Do you think that actually is something that will actually work? Because given the simultaneous nature of time, then can that actually be what reincarnation is? So the answer is no, of course. There are lots of other attributes as well. One where, you're punished so that at the end of the life, you're standing at the pearly gates and you're judged by somebody and you're allowed in or you're not allowed in, all that kind of stuff, So all these things are attributes of reincarnation, that you're heading towards some kind of perfect state or some kind of nirvana eventually and that type of thing. So they're all the attributes. But again, if we accept the simultaneous nature of time, what are we left with? What's left on the table when we take away all that kind of stuff, Because if time's simultaneous, of course, none of that stuff can be real. None of that stuff is real. So what happens? So what we're left with, essentially, as you must be aware, is, many lives happening all at the same time, but also without the traditional concepts of hierarchy or reaching some kind of state of perfection, because it's all happening now. It's all happening at the same time. So if we take our view of what changes we're going to have to make to the traditional view of what a soul is, we're going to have to change that, aren't we? We see that initially the idea of a soul, although it may appear to be very expansive, is actually very limited, that there's one soul, comes into a body, comes out, goes up and down, all that kind of stuff. You've got to begin to really appreciate, in order to really awaken yourself, to understand the soul in a new light. So you begin to see the soul as a multidimensional being that exists in these realities all at the same time, that exists actually in many days at the same time, within one lifetime, all weeks happening at the same time, and that the soul, you, exist within all of those, okay, and that there are lives created simultaneously. That's really, really just a mind-blowing kind of thing. You can't really get your head around it. So the question is, why would a multidimensional being focus part of itself into creating a reality that we call a lifetime? Why would that happen? And of course it happens because we want to learn something. We want to experience the intimate details, the relationships, the emotions, the ups and downs of human life. The personality, the self, learns about itself through creativity, and our lifetime is a creative process. And so if you can see it in that light, you can understand that we are, a good quote is that we're the soul in chemical clothes. We are the soul in flesh, in a self-created state of consciousness, part of a multidimensional being that exists simultaneously in physical reality and out of physical reality at the same time. So it's a pretty big vision, if you like. So what advantages do you think are there in actually creating experiences in different lifetimes? So within the kind of, with the reincarnational process as we understand it now. So what do you think you get out of, as a soul, out of all these different, so there might be a lifetime, with different technologies, a lifetime, obviously in 1800 time, in our supposed future, all that kind of stuff. What do you think you get, out of all these different things? In one lifetime, you'll be a male. Other lifetime, you'll be a female. Some lifetime, you may only reach puberty, or maybe, not reach puberty at all. Another lifetime, you'll be 95 years old, or 100 years before you die. What do you think you're getting out of all that, or the soul gets out of all that? Because when you think about it, what if the soul wants to experience and create and learn, then all those experiences allow us to learn about who we are. The technology, the male and female, the cultures, of course, because you'll be in different cultures in different reincarnations, simultaneous existences. They provide us as souls, as personalities, with a rich and varied source of creativity, of experience. And of course, we can't experience that in any other way. I cannot experience within this lifetime what it's like to be a woman. I just can't, because I'm a guy. I can't experience what it's like to have a baby. I can't experience, right now, I'm not experiencing what it's like to be 93 years old. So all of these experiences, or to be a different color skin, or a different, a different race, in a different culture, in a different, time period, all that kind of stuff. I'm not doing that. Although I am aware that other parts of my personality are within the country, within the UK, as we might think of it, although we need to redefine all those, obviously, but also in other countries as well, in the past and in my probable past, in my probable future, all existing at the same time. So with this new concept of time, what I hope you can see is that the traditional concept of a soul and of your identity needs to be enlarged, grown and deepened. There are multidimensional beings that create lives and times for our own experiences, our own purposes, and that's what you are. You're a multidimensional being. Each life will have its own purpose and learning possibilities, and you can become aware of those, and I would advise that you open yourself up to those ideas. And then you can maybe view your life as a play, in which you take on the appropriate costume. This time I'm male, I'm called David Marshall this lifetime, but in other lifetimes I'm called other things, and outside of physical reality I'm called other things, but that is just who I am in this. This is the clothing that I'm placed on in this lifetime. Through understanding the nature of the self, the deeper self, the broader, the more complex self, I promise you can begin to wake up and realize that you create the play in totality. You're playing a role within your own construction, within your own play. And in essence, we could call reincarnational selves other probable selves, okay, or other selves within a different time frame. That's the best way. So if we are the being who's in those different lives, then our identity is really very different. Your identity is very different. So what barriers do you think are in a self-created state of consciousness created through thought? Okay, it's all the same stuff. What barriers do you think exist between the lives, or these dimensions of activity? Could there be any barriers that exist? Well, I can tell you that there aren't. There are no barriers, because there can be no barriers in thought. There's only barriers of experience. So, although we remember, remember that we communicate consciously with other aspects of ourselves. This includes past lives in our terms, and also future lives. You're in constant contact because it's part of who you are. Quite literally, it's literally part of who you are. So, in this lesson. Now, the last lesson we went big and deep, didn't we, to get to this one? And we're gonna move on again to the multidimensional nature of the soul a little bit deeper as well. But as we've seen, the nature of events is very different. They are almost limitless possible events that could happen in your lives, and the soul exists in each one of them at the same time. Each day, each moment exists at the same time, and you're part of that. What your experience is based within that. So the reincarnational process is very different. We're able to learn through experience, and we have a variety of unique and intimate ways with the process. Sometimes we're male, sometimes we're female, different countries, different cultures, different time periods. And so reincarnation is a natural consequence of the self's creative processes and purposes to know itself. We want to know ourselves. We want to know who we are. And through this process, what we're able to do is kind of immerse ourselves into an ego consciousness. We experience the cultures, the emotional experiences, the dramas, the ups and downs, all those types of things. And by doing that, we learn about who we are. We have creative experiences, and that is essentially what you're here to do. So that's it. That is that lesson. The next one, we're going to get into the multidimensional nature of the soul, and just absolutely awesome stuff. So I'll see you on the next lesson.